order. This is the March 2nd of 2023 Apple Valley Park and Recreation Advisory Committee meeting. As usual, our first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance. So I invite you all to stand and face the flag. And I'll recite together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first order of business is election of officers. We have two positions to be voted on tonight. Eric or Kayla, would one of you care to kind of help us organize our activities here?
Sure, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. You should have on your dais a ballot with all of your names on it. And so if there's somebody that wants to nominate someone to be the chair, that would be appropriate. If there's somebody that wants to nominate someone to be the secretary, that would be appropriate. If there's more than two people nominated for either one of those positions, then we'll ask you to vote. If only one person's nominated for each one of those positions, then obviously there wouldn't be a need to vote per se. So
Well,
it would be appropriate at this point for someone to nominate, make nominations for the chair.
okay.
I'd like to nominate Brent Schultz as chair.
I'll second that. Oh, I don't know if you need a second.
You accept?
Well, I guess if there's anybody else to nominate anybody else.
No, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Okay.
Oh,
Is there anyone else that would like to make a nomination?
For
For chair.
No, but I would
Thank you,
like to
for chair.
nominate. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave, were you going to say something? Can we do with nominations for secretary now?
Yep.
I nominate Lisa Hebert for secretary.
Second that. Second that, if a second is required.
I will accept if there's no other nominations.
All right. And so does anyone want to nominate anyone else to be the chair or the secretary? All right. So then I'm assuming the committee's comfortable with Brent and Lisa serving as chair and secretary.
Works for me.
All right. So maybe,
Okay.
maybe you should probably make a motion just to that effect, have somebody second it, and then just vote on that.
I'll make a motion to accept the nominations and the acceptance of the nominations for chair and secretary.
Second that.
All of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your confidence for yet another year. I did notice that my current term expires next year, so I'm thinking this will probably be my last year on the committee. So you can all
It's amazing how referendums do that.
plan it. Well, yeah.
I'm seeing a pattern.
We can all plan accordingly. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. And the next order of business would be to approve tonight's agenda. We've all had a chance to take a look at it. Are there any comments or questions? And if not, I'd be looking for a motion to approve it as published.
So moved.
Second, anybody?
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as published. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, no one is opposed. That motion is also carried. Audience participation. There is nobody in the audience tonight, and we're not doing the remote call-in any longer.
Correct.
So that's a non-factor for tonight's meeting. And then we move on to approval of the last two meeting minutes. This would be from November last year and January of this year. Has everyone had a chance to read through the minutes that Kayla's put together? Questions, comments?
There is one change that I noticed. If you look on the November meeting, item 6, which is correct. If you look on the January meeting, that same item 6 is duplicated. It's got my name on there, and I was nowhere near here in January, so I know that's not right. So I think we need to delete item 6 from the January minutes.
Good eyes, Mark, you passed the test.
From the the January meeting.
Yeah, the November
That's what
one
you mean.
is correct, I'm
Good.
pretty sure.
That was my fault.
But it's the same one in January, so I think if we're gonna approve the
Yeah.
minutes, we should take that item 6 out of the January,
Okay.
unless I'm,
Yeah, no,
Unless
that's,
I'm
yeah,
wrong.
good,
Going to make a motion to strike?
yeah. You,
He found it.
well,
yeah.
Mr.
Mark, why
Chair.
don't you go ahead and,
can we just make a motion to approve the minutes with item 6 deleted from the January minutes, or do you wanna have
Mr.
a motion to delete that and then?
no.
I think we have some
Just-
guidance coming.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, why don't you somebody make a motion to approve the December minutes,
January.
or I'm sorry, the November minutes, and then take a separate motion for the January minutes. So if you want to approve the November minutes first, which everyone believes is correct and accurate, then we can address the January minutes in a separate motion.
Okay,
Make a motion to accept the November minutes as presented.
Second?
okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the November minutes as published. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No, that's carried. And
Then
now
it
we're
would-
looking
then-
for a motion.
Yeah, and then it would be appropriate to make a motion to approve the January 5th, 2023 minutes, but amend them to delete item 6.
Item number 6.
I'll make a motion to accept the January minutes with the exception of deleting item 6.
Second that?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is also carried.
Thank you.
I saw my name and I was not there.
So, the next item, 6A on our agenda, would be the committee annual report.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we have put together an annual report for your review. It covers the activities of 2022 for the Parks Committee. We reference the meeting dates, the topics in which you discussed at your meetings, and we talk a little bit about the efforts that the committee's had with regards to a potential parks bond referendum. So we're suggesting that that is your report that you would file and submit to the city council if you are comfortable with what the report reflects. With that, I can stand and answer any questions.
We reviewed the report during our informal meeting, and the comment was made that I think it's thought it was very well done. So I would be completely in favor of accepting this as presented.
Make a motion to accept the 2022 year-end Park and Rec year-end report as presented.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, motion by Hamel, second by Shorey. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. That is also carried. Then we're looking at division updates. So, the department's annual report. How do you want to work that, Eric?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, again, attached in your packet this evening is the department's annual report, a little bit more detailed than the committee's annual report, where we go through some facts and figures and activities that happen within Parks and Recreation for the year 2022. We talk about some of the events and some of the projects that we've accomplished, both in parks and in recreation at the golf course, senior center, community center, et cetera. So if anyone has any questions about anything found in the report, happy to try to answer those questions. But again, looking for the committee to approve the Park and Recreation Department report, which we would then also forward on to the City Council for their approval.
I'll make a motion to accept the Parks and Recreation 2022 year-end report as submitted.
A question.
Of course.
Can I ask a question before that? Just out of curiosity, once the city council, approves it, does this go on the city's website for the public?
It does.
I guess I just wanted to say publicly that I really encourage people to take a look at it, because it really is highlighting just the vast amount of programs and resources and facilities we have. And I think, especially with the bond referendum coming up, and again, gives a lot of good information of what people are using and what we're doing here for the city of Apple Valley with Parks and Rec. And we're really fortunate to have great programs and facilities and looking to invest in it. So I just would just publicly like to say that I encourage people to take a look at it on the website and kind of see what we've been, what we've been doing as a city. It's impressive.
Right, excellent suggestion. Thank you for that. Dave, you had made a motion
I think it's still on the table, so.
on the table. Is there a
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the department's annual report as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Then we're going to hear from the two of the divisions. One is the is by Mike concerning the park superintendent. We're going to hear about all the activity that he's been involved in during the year.
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. Thanks for having me this evening. I just want to give a brief overview of some of the things that we've been doing throughout the winter. It's been, to say the least, a roller coaster winter with a lot of warmth, a lot of rain, a lot of snow, and everything that goes with it. But yeah, I want to just kind of highlight a few things that we've been working on. Obviously, we've got our missions and goals here that you're all aware of, just kind of review. The 22 and 23 outdoor rink season, again, experienced some challenges as we started to move into the season. Early December looked pretty good for temperatures, and then it started to rise pretty quickly. The second week of December stayed above zero, even experiencing a couple days of rain and snow. It basically pulled all the frost out of the ground, and we kind of started from scratch. We scrambled that week before Christmas to get things up and going, and we were successful to get at least the activity center up and going. That's a hard surface rink over there, and we were able to open it up for the Christmas break. The following weeks again brought some more temperatures that were up and down, kind of making it a challenge to flood the rinks again. We continued to work some overnight shifts when flooding temperatures allowed, and all rinks officially opened to the public on the 11th of January, which is pretty late in the season considering. All rinks on the 15th of February basically closed due to another rainfall event that came through, roughly a little over an inch of rain that came at that point. So throughout the season, we had 76 days that we tracked on the ice maintenance side of it. 34 of those days were actually 32 degrees or above. So it made for an interesting season, that's for sure. We were able to open all of them up at one point or another, but became a little bit of a challenging, so it'll probably go down the history books there. I'll give you a little update on some of our full-time staff that are there. Some of the members, Kirk Olson was promoted to a maintenance 2 position. He met his requirements of 18 months. Some licenses that came along with that made him fall into that category. One of the newer hires, Steve Marsh just finished his CDL Class B license, so it makes him available to run all of the equipment that we have in our system. Justin Lewis finished a 7-module turf management course offered by Department of Horticultural Crop and Science at Ohio State University. It's an online course that I assigned actually 2 of the staff on. One of them is yet to complete that, but should finish up in the next week or 2. And then a couple of the other staff members completed some pool certification operator licenses that involves testing as well this year. The supervisor, Steve Rother, actually attended an NRPA management course second year and finished that up with those classes. We've got some pesticide applicator licenses, couple boilers licenses as well. So just kind of an overview of what we do to prepare our staff for what we do in our system. A shade tree short course that's offered by the University of Minnesota as well, just to try to keep people educated in our division. Snow update. This is outdated, as you probably are well aware of, after last week's snowfall. So an updated number on that is from last week's snowfall, we were actually over 74 inches, and we got almost 2,200 hours of operating plow hours involved with that. I will say, after last week's event, we were able to get through 90% of our pathways and everything already by Saturday afternoon. There were some residual that were out there, and there's some struggles with the freeze thaw, basically turning those sidewalks and pathways into giant bathtubs in this way, so it's difficult to get them cleared out. But for the most part, the general public is understanding on what we're dealing with and the temperature changes. Yeah, it's been a normal winter, I guess, statistically. One of the biggest projects we got coming up this summer is we're going to do similar like we did a couple of years ago over the Johnny West parking lots. We'll be resurfacing them, basically what they call it a fog chip seal. What that involves is a slurry of basically asphalt that goes down, and then it gets covered with a thin layer of granite chips that stays on there for a period of a couple weeks to get driven into it, whatever, kind of prolonging the life of the parking lots a little bit. Then they sweep up the residual, and then we'll end up striping that. So that's one of our bigger ticket items that are going to happen yet this spring. Just some general updates across the board. There's a new productive park software program that we're working on. It's a way to track duties and be a little more definite and giving some numbers throughout the year. Might give us maybe some influential numbers as well, tracking what we're doing for staff and what we're potentially hiring or what we need to do to get more staff on board if that's the case. Equipment purchases are usually early on in the season. A bunch of OSHA training, that usually happens as well. Seasonal interviews. Recently I seen an uptick of seasonal interviews, so I'm optimistic, probably is the word I'm looking for, that we're going to get some seasonal staffs on board. This week, yeah, we're looking at an additional 5 or 6 interviews that are going to come up. So I think that uptick in wages is going to help. Fertilizer seed purchases go through this year. Spring equipment prep, so we're switching all the winter equipment over to summer. The mowers get worked on, all that kind of good stuff. Winter tree pruning, it's been a little bit challenging this year with the amount of snow that's out there, but we try to get out there and prune that as well. Shop cleaning, inventory, supplies, safety supplies, gloves, hats, all that kind of stuff that happens in the springtime or late winter. Barrel painting, picnic table repairs, annual staff reviews, which I'll be doing this next week. I'll sit down with them and we review annually what they've been doing throughout the year. And then pre and post midwinter festivities too, as we talked earlier, that I think that was a great success, but weather had a big part of that. So with that, I stand to respond to any questions that you might have.
Oh, I have a question.
Sure.
Again, amazing work. Thank you to everyone, and especially with the support with snow. I know it's been a tough year. Question, just kind of looking ahead to the spring with as much snow and rain and the freeze thaw, are you kind of anticipating a little bit more damage to some of our park facilities or the fields that are going to need some extra work to get them ready?
Frankly, I'm excited, being that there isn't a whole lot of frost in the ground in the areas where the snow hasn't been removed. I think it'll create a good condition for the snow melt to soak in. Obviously, last summer was extremely dry, and I think this is going to be a benefit. I'm excited to see if we don't have a really weird spring thaws. I think this is going to turn out to be favorable for us on the turf side of things.
Right? Great to hear. Thanks.
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry, Craig, go ahead.
I was just gonna commend the department for working on the education front. I think it's very important, and it's impressive to see all the different certifications and everything that everyone's going through. One question I have: so when you have a situation like the ice rinks, where some are open, then they close because we had a warm day, and then you get some up and some aren't, how do you communicate which rinks are open to the public in a live manner? You know, like, what's the best way for an individual to find out if a rink is open or closed, or if, you know, in the summer, if the pool is closed because of weather, or if it's, you know, that sort of deal?
Typically, I'll work with our recreation staff, and they'll post things on Facebook and things like that to try and get some instantaneous information that are out there. I try to let them know as early as possible when we get out there if rink conditions are rough or not safe, so to speak. And try and get that message out as soon as possible. So they're very good about getting that out to the general public, but that's usually our medium to try and make that communication piece.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Do you actually close the rinks? I mean, so
Yes.
people cannot get in there?
No, not physically close them.
Okay.
We just make the announcement that they're closed. We'll remove the nets. A lot of times what'll end up happening is we don't physically block them off. I mean, people will go out, put their skates on and skate, but I think that it's a conscious decision to say, well, the city actually closed down the rink and we don't suggest skating on it, not to necessarily say police it, so to speak, to keep them off of there. But yeah, so we don't go to that level, no.
Is there signage that says it's closed?
No, we don't post any signage either.
Well, doesn't skating when the ice is soft would damage the?
Depending upon how much we have out there, if we've got a good buildup of ice, it can usually bounce back relatively quick. You know, we get a stretch that's in the teens or below, we can fix that scarring, so to speak, pretty quick. And again, you get later into that season, the sun gets a little bit higher, things start to melt a little quicker. That becomes a challenge too, but for the most part, we can turn around pretty quickly. We actually have a piece of equipment, it's somewhat like a Zamboni, that's on the back of a tractor, that's got a blade on it, and that kind of shaves down some of the imperfections a little bit, and then we'll float over the top of that.
If the city implemented new signage, would that be something helpful, a open-closed signage?
Yeah, you know, I think that's probably a good approach, maybe something that we can easily attach or, yeah, something to that effect. No, I think that's probably a good approach.
What were those two words?
Closed. Open.
So is
Did it
this
the other
season one of the shortest, Mike?
Oh, yes.
Because you said January 11th they opened and they closed on the 15th.
Yeah, yeah, I don't recall a season being this short. We can generally get everything open by that first week in January at least. It just, yeah, I mean, some of the surrounding communities weren't open at all. I don't want to drop any areas, but I know that a handful of them were completely closed, because they were dealing with those temperature fluctuations.
With the erratic weather, I mean, this is probably gonna be our new normal.
Possibly.
Say, Mike, I'm just looking at the, at the year-end report. Where it says, what, under outdoor skating rinks, under 2022? Is that the whole, is that this, what do I say? Is that just several?
That's the last
Several
season.
months ago, or is that a year? and
That
6
isn't
months ago?
the current season.
So it's 21, 22.
No, well, 22, 23.
22, 23.
What's this?
Yes, yeah.
So it's
Right.
I mean, these numbers are incredible. I mean, it's gone from, like on Johnny Cake, I mean, we're showing over 3,000. This is on page,
The activity center
28.
saw a huge amount of skaters. It really did. And I think part of that was because a lot of the others were not open yet. There may have been some imports as well that came there. I mean, in that situation with those hard surface rinks like that, you can, if I have a stretch of 3 days that are cold, I can get them open probably in 3 days. It makes a big difference when you're not working with imperfections in the ground and things like that with grass and whatever that might be in some of those situations. And you don't get that, have to work with that saturation level as much on a hard surface rink.
well, this, I mean, yeah, I mean, I was really amazed when I saw these.
So are those numbers people that use the warming houses? Is that what that's?
They track that with, the user groups that are coming in there, so the attendants keep track of that.
Okay.
That are working there.
Okay.
So, that was my only
Okay,
question.
Thanks,
All right.
Mike.
all right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Next, we're gonna hear from Jim Zink, the golf course superintendent, or the golf course manager. Valleywood manager.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. As you guys are well aware, in the last year or so, we've been sending out kind of a monthly update. So a lot of this information is somewhat review for all of you, but I think it's hopefully informative. So we'll do a little review of how things went last year. So this is, we track rounds of golf by month, kind of gives us a trend of how the season, you can see in 2021, obviously we were open earlier. I think last year in 22, I think we opened about April 5th, but April weather was horrendous. So we were, 3,500 rounds behind pretty quickly last year. The peak of the summer was great. Very few weather issues. So it's funny, when we had this chart up last year and the year before, the numbers just were spiking like crazy, a lot due to COVID. Now it's kind of hopefully become the new norm. So that's what we're seeing month to month. Annual rounds, we were down 4,500 rounds. A lot of that was, again, early in the year. And as the committee knows, with our modification of our Youth on Course program, we saw quite a bit of decrease in those players. But the junior season pass we offered for $200 was a huge success. So it very little negative feedback. Early on, we got a little pushback about the Youth on Course once we were able to explain, hey, your kids can get a pass here for $200, include range usage. We kind of turned those complaints. Those people quickly became fans. Gave us an opportunity to really get to know the kids. So hopefully this is kind of the new norm. Our business plan is based on about 30,000 rounds a year. So the last few years have been very, very good. So we've been able to put a little money away. One of the priorities has been growth in getting our events back. We don't consider our smaller league events and smaller kind of gatherings. We're looking at the big events. So here you see weddings, large private parties, banquets, grad parties in the last few years has kind of become a sweet spot for us early in the spring, if you will. So we're seeing a steady growth in that, and we're seeing a lot of inquiries going forward. So Kaylee Hughes is our part-time event planner and banquet coordinator, and she's very, very busy. So that's a good thing. As I mentioned, we got off to a slow start, so we were about $68,000 behind as of April 30th. We probably would have been a lot more than that had it not been for a little bit of banquet and event business there early in the year. But by the end of July, we had made all of it up and then some. So we were ahead as the end of July. And again, kind of tracking monthly, these are all in thousands. But prior to 2021, I think the biggest month we ever had at Valleywood was about $225,000 or $230,000. You can see those summer months. We kind of have blown right by those numbers. And in July, we were just shy of 300 for the month. So we're also seeing a nice trend in our shoulder season months with some additional revenue from these outside events and things like that. So we finished the year total revenue. We were up over $90,000 from the previous year. Record revenue for about the third year in a row now. So those numbers are awesome. Food and beverage has been one of the areas of focus for us. We took that back in-house 2 years ago. So we hired a brand new staff of all kind of inexperienced young people. And I'll tell you, by the end of last year, 2 years in, I feel like we have a staff of experienced young professionals. And that has really, really gone well. Our golf course clubhouse manager, Jordan Johnson, oversees that, and he's just done a great job getting that staff on board. And one of the nice payoffs is now we're seeing a real spike in applicants, as I think that staff now is established a little bit. It's kind of spread the word, if you will. Like Mike, we're very optimistic with what we're seeing for applicants. I believe we have, in fact, closed our food and beverage part of the applicants just because we're getting more than we know what to do with. So very encouraged with the food and beverage. And a lot of that is due to the banquet and event business. So a lot of the growth there is from that. And you can see, just shy of $300,000 in food and beverage last year. So that's awesome. If we'd have sat down and predicted that 2 years ago, none of us would have believed it. So we're very, very encouraged to see that. That's kind of the summary of 2022 season. I just want to talk a little bit about what we're building towards now in 23. We spent part of the last year developing a new Valleywood logo, particularly to incorporate events into it. We work closely with Eve, who is our communications person in the city. Finally, we're able to arrive at this. For those of you that have been out to the course, you see we've installed a new reader board and signage right at the front gate. We've also added a new sign along Pilot Knob Road, facing south. At the north end of the course there's just not really a spot we can get it where it's very visible, so we've kind of left our old one in that position. But that's been very well received. It's got a beautiful reader board on it. We can update it. Right now we've been updating about jobs, but if we're having a wedding or an event, we can welcome those groups. We welcome our leagues using that signage, and it's been very well received. The other thing we worked on in the off season was developing a new website. We've been incorporated as just part of the city website, and we felt like it wasn't as an effective marketing tool as we would like. So this is kind of the landing page of the website, and see if okay. So we did this little video just kind of clicking through, showing you where you can see fees, promoting events, contact information for different events. We have some videos in there. We have promoting weddings, special events, contacts. So if you fill that out, it goes directly to our event coordinator. All of our lesson programs are on there, and you can sign up for a lot of this stuff right through the website. And then we have a simple way for people to just click and join our newsletter. These are testimonials from golf tournaments, leagues, outings, weddings, all those types of events. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. But it's funny, just talking about weddings and events, Kaylee has been with us for a couple of years, and just this morning, she came out of her office and said, I just talked to somebody about booking an event, and they said they were at a parking lot wedding here. And Jordan and I both laughed. I think it was 3 years ago now, when COVID first started, we had a wedding plan there, and they were bound and determined to have their wedding. And just prior to the wedding, I believe it was the maid of honor, a couple other people were tested positive. We talked to them, hey, whatever we can do to help make this happen for you. So they brought the officiant out, the bride and groom stood up on a hillside. It was like an old school drive-in movie. Everybody else was in their cars. And they had their wedding, and they were able to individually walk up, and we could serve them on the patio, and they'd go back to the parking lot. So it's kind of funny. Talk about a memorable wedding. But we've now gotten, I believe this is our third event from people that have referenced this parking lot wedding. So sometimes when it doesn't go as planned, it's more memorable than ever. As we work forward, we have big projects this year. This, I know, is kind of a confusing picture, not particularly descriptive, but this is our irrigation plan. And I just think it helps to demonstrate to people just how complicated this process is of installing 986, I think it is, sprinkler heads. The coordination involved with running, you can see the thicker lines are kind of all the main lines out. All the dots represent different sprinkler heads. But we've been working on this for a number of years with a golf course architect. They will be on site starting in July. Then they will we will be running our old system and the new system. We just can't go 2 months without any irrigation. So it is going to be, I think, a challenge, but a very exciting season for us. I know that our golf course foreman and his assistant are very excited. Working with a 45-year-old irrigation system presents quite a few challenges. The new system, they'll be able to run on an iPad. It'll have all the technology. We can put moisture sensors into sprinkler heads so that if it's a wet area, that sprinkler won't come on. Probably one of the biggest benefits is with the ponds out on the golf course, and many of them near greens, the old sprinkler systems, that sprinkler would come up, and it's just going to keep doing a 360. The new systems are directional. They won't spray where we don't want water. They'll only spray where we do want it. That keeps track of how much water it's putting down, and not to mention the water that is probably leaking out of those 45-year-old pipes under the ground. So this will be a huge project this year. It's been years in planning, and we're looking forward to getting going on it. We feel very fortunate. We feel like we got one of the best contractors in the country to do this job. And the golf course architect has worked, or the irrigation architect has worked with them quite a bit. As long as we're doing this, as part of this, we're also going to do some modifications to the golf course. Kind of starting in this lower left corner. This on the corner here is where the senior housing development is going in. So part of this is the redesign, kind of tweaking of this, what is the third hole that plays around that property. We're going to be moving the green over. We've done some tree work along here, adding some new tees. We're trying to do everything we can to be respectful of that property on the corner and to minimize for those people that play golf, nobody really knows where their golf ball's going. They like to think they do, but we're trying to do everything we can to minimize the impact there. As we work across the screen here in the middle kind of is our driving range, which is a great revenue source for us, but it's kind of been piecemealed in over the years. So we're going to undertake a full rebuild of the driving range teeing area, cart parking area, everything involved with where you hit balls from. We will remain on synthetic mats. We simply do not have the acreage necessary to be able to move tees and be able to play off a turf, but the new mat technology, just like everything else, is much better than it used to be. And then as we get over here on 18, 17, and 15, you can see labeled. These are just kind of modifications to how the fairway is, where we mow. Part of it was with the old irrigation system. Fairways kind of had to be where the irrigation was provided. So we're working with a golf course architect to make some minor modifications to those holes to make them A, more playable, B, better, easier to maintain, to improve drainage. So all in all, I feel like really for a golf course that was built, almost 50 years ago, it's fairly minor tweaks. The price tag isn't really minor, but as long as we're undertaking the huge project of the irrigation, it's just seemed like this is the perfect time to take on some of these other modifications. So I'm sure as we get, like I say, they are planning on being on site mid-July. The idea would be that they would mainly be working near the maintenance area with the pumps, and the main systems there. Most of our golf leagues run through about the middle of August. So the plan is to try to get those leagues all done, that core of the season done, before they're actually out on the golf course putting the lines in. The great thing, again, would have been great to replace it 10 years ago, but the technology now is so much better that they do everything now with the flexible tubing. It's no different than, when they built houses 30 years ago and everything was with copper pipe, and now they have all the flexible PEX piping. So it should have much less impact on the playing surfaces. But it's going to be a very, very busy and exciting year. And I guess with that, anybody have any questions? I'm sure I will be back late this summer updating on where we're at with that project and how we're doing. But we're very encouraged with already. We're getting tons of inquiries for league play, lessons. In the last couple of years, most all of our leagues have filled back up from kind of the shock of the beginning of COVID, that now golf is a thing. So we are optimistic that we'll get ahead of it again before we start undertaking these big projects.
So Jim, is after August or whenever you said, are you going to have to close the course at all? Or
No, the idea would be, and just to kind of scroll back here to that where we have that kind of monthly revenue. September is still a big month for us. We may, and we don't know yet, but we may have to close a hole for part of a day. We know that we're going to have situations where, in working with the contractor, that they may come to our maintenance guys and say, hey, you're not going to be able to water the 4th and 5th hole next week, so let's try to get ahead of that. Fortunately, our parks director has kind of been through this a few years back in a neighboring community. So we do anticipate possibly having to, provide some discounted fees, possibly close a hole. We're hopeful that those interruptions are minimal, but we do anticipate some. And that's why I say we're hoping once we get late into August, that most, we'll have a lot of our revenue in, and that with the growth in events and other things that we'll sustain without too bad a hit.
Well, Jim, I want to say, that website that you showed us tonight, I think it's phenomenal. I had not seen that before. Some of these aerial photographs are really dramatic.
Yeah. It's actually, it's one of the great things when you run a golf course, the cable guys and the guys that work here in the city, when they're in City Hall all winter, and you tell them, hey, we could use some nice aerial photos and some drone footage and some shots of the golf course. They're very accommodating. So,
Sure.
and it's just trying to be competitive with the marketplace that's out there.
I think, this and the combination of the emails that you send out, I get those, and I think they're really interesting.
We try to keep it interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and, I don't know, I just, 3-4 years ago, the Valleywood was a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
And now I just feel really optimistic about everything. I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you. I echo that
And
feeling.
Jordan, and I know Jordan's been a big part of this too.
Yes. But yeah, and that's part of it too. I feel like we've got the right team. We're moving in the right direction. And like I say, there's going to be an impact from this project going on. But I feel really fortunate that we were able to kind of build this momentum over the last 5 or 6 years, and before we do this project. And we have our groundskeeper, our foreman out there. He's been with us about 7 years now. And he's gained a lot of credibility with the golfers. Where it's a good sign that you've got the right people taking care of your golf course out there when they start a project, and the golfers are actually excited to see how it turns out, as opposed to feeling inconvenienced by it. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting year.
Yeah.
I remember the first budget that you presented us, and you have a great product now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Jim,
you.
I got a question on that, you're showing the course redesign with that, I guess it's the hole number 3.
Yep.
The senior center. What's the expectation? I can just envision a couple of years from now, we have people out in the audience complaining that golf balls are hitting their patio or their roof, or what's our,
Well, we're trying to do everything we can to minimize that. Now, I will be candid that part of the negative part of the golf boom over the last couple years is that we have very few neighbors on the golf course. We do have a few homes along the property towards Rosemont, and they're seeing more golf balls in their property. And a lot of it has to do with novice players and the equipment, and how far people can hit the ball. So that's why one of the reasons we're undertaking by moving the third green over. It's something that is definitely on my radar to continue to try to communicate with the architect we're working with. And we most likely will be planting some additional trees. You know the property well, so we're looking at where the third tee was, of planting some trees so that they're closer to the new tee. I wish I could say, oh, that won't happen. But we're trying to do everything we can to, be respectful of this development going in. I've been in communication pretty regularly with their project super down there. We have given them information and contact information for their own netting, if they would want to install just, there was a massive bunch of trees over there that they have really taken 3/4 of them out and pushed right up against our property line. So I've been encouraging them that they may want to, before they start occupancy, they may want to put some posts up, and better safe than sorry.
I like that approach.
Yeah, and like I say, Dave, we're trying to do everything we can. The reality is that I wish I'm a pretty good golfer. I wish I knew where my ball was going all the time, but most don't.
Just keep me off the course.
Anything else?
Anything else?
I'll jump, one more thing. I think this might be jumping to the next agenda topic the next agenda topic where we discuss additional items. What I was hoping we could see maybe at the next meeting would be a plan from, maybe Jordan or you to see what it would take to put music either on the patio, piped in music, whether it be Spotify for Business or something like that, indoors, so we could have at the facility create a more enjoyable ambiance.
We're working on that. As you know, and the rest of the committee, I think, knows, we did music on the patio. We're trying to do some more events. One of the challenges with having special events is there's sometimes an outlay, a cost to that. What we were able to do late in the year, we were able to purchase some patio furniture after we were closed. So we're trying to get ahead of that by providing better seating and a better ambiance out there. So that is something we are working towards.
But could you guys put together just something that said, here's what the cost would be to license, whether it be any type of these services?
Yeah, and part of it is that there are a couple speakers on the patio that are tied into the whole audiovisual system. The great thing, again, with technology is now a lot of the portable systems work just fine. So that's what we'll be pursuing, is it gives us more flexibility too.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Anything else?
That's a good idea, yeah. Anything else? All right, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, so finally, we come to item number 7, where we have an opportunity for the committee or staff to present any new ideas or concerns that they have. And
Nothing other than what I just talked about.
hearing, so, well, you were just talking about like a Sonos system out there or something like
Yeah,
that.
and I know you'd have to license a service, so you're not, just for
Yeah.
the proper royalty
ASCAP.
payments and so forth.
Yeah. Okay, with that, I guess we'll entertain a motion to adjourn for the evening.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. Before you do that, just maybe an update for the committee, which you know it, but more for those that might be watching at home, is that on yesterday, we started doing the statistically accurate community phone survey about a potential Parks Bond referendum. And so if folks are listening at home and they happen to get a phone call from the Morris Leatherman Company, and they will explain who they are and what they're doing. But we are reaching out to 400 people in the community to get their thoughts on what we've been talking about with regards to a potential Parks Bond referendum. And we'll be reviewing the results of that survey here in April. So again, if you're in the community, you get a phone call, we'd encourage you to participate. If you want more information about what's being considered and you haven't seen it yet, please go to our website. Everything that we have with regards to projects and cost estimates for projects and tax impacts are on our website. And if you have any questions about any of that, you're more than welcome to give me a phone call or send me an email, and my contact information is on the website itself. So encourage people to reach out if they have questions.
Thanks.
Thank
All right,
you.
worthwhile comments. Okay, so now we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, all those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.